React is a layer repeater and effector for After Effects. Let's see how it works. So I have my React UI here, and with my layer selected, I want to create a grid. So I click the grid button. And React gives me a 4x4 grid based off my defaults. In the settings, there's 4x4. If I want to create a 3x3 grid, I type in the text box 3 space 3 and hit the grid button. And there's my 3x3 grid. React gives me two nulls and a guide layer. So here's my repeater null and my effector null and my guide layer. With the repeater null selected, I can reposition the grid and scale it and rotate it. I can also affect it up in the effects with the spacing and anchor point controls. With the grid, there's also honeycomb settings. So with that enabled, it gives a honeycomb effect, which can be offset. For linear, we have similar settings, spacing and anchor point controls. And for radial, we can affect the radius and start and end controls. If I select my effector null now, we can see all the effector controls, and I want to affect the scale of my layers. So I turn this scale on and I reduce the uniform scale like so, and that affects all of my layers. We can also use a falloff. So if I go up to falloff and shape, turn that to circle and move that around, only those layers inside the circle will be affected. And by increasing the hold, I can shorten the transition period. If I turn to box, I can change the box size by the null and move it around. And hitting W, I can rotate it as well. Like so. And we also have linear. We can also change the position of the layers. So if we go to effector and turn the position on, and we've got two modes in position. We've got absolute relative and attract repel. If I turn Y up, that gives us a relative value. Turn circle, like so. And we can also turn it to absolute. So that will give us an absolute value based on the comp space. So that's at -106. If I bring that to there and absolute to there maybe. So all the layers will go to that point in the comp space. We've also got attract repel, and by default the target is the effector null. I turn that up and you'll see that my layers are repelled away from the effector null. And if I turn this into a minus figure, the layers will be attracted. Let's take a look at rotation now. So with the effector, let's go down to rotation. And we've got two modes, relative and look at. Relative is pretty straightforward. Let's turn circle on. And we've also got look at. Scroll down, look at. Target by default is the effector, and you'll see that those layers are facing the wrong way, so we can change the offset Now all those layers within the fall off will now look at the effector. We also have opacity controls, so let's twirl opacity down. You can also create repeaters with different layers, so if I select all the layers and let's make a 6 by 6 grid. Okay, and with my repeater I want to space them out a little bit more. And I want to do a ripple effect, so I'm going to turn on scale and fall off, and I'm going to increase the size of them. Let's just turn all of these down. So I'm going to animate my scale from 1 all the way up, and I want to create another effector so it goes back again. So if I select all my layers and hit the add effector, this just adds an effector without any repetition to the layers. So here's my second effector, and I want to affect the scale as a circle, and I want it to go back again. So it went up 54, and it's minus 54. And we can copy that and offset it. And let's play that. And there we go. If we click on one of the repeated layers, you'll see that it has two effects, an index and position effect and a layer selector. With the index and position, you can affect which index of the repeater you would like your layer to be in. So it's handy for swapping two layers, for example, like so. We also have random and step effectors for each of the effects on the effector. So for scale, if I turn this on, and let's give a random effect on the scale for all of them. And then perhaps on rotation, if we go to step, and we can crank this up, and that multiplies whatever value this is with the index value. If you're happy with what you have and you want to get rid of React and just bake in the position, scale and rotation values, you can select everything in the comp and hit delete. And it will get rid of the effect controls and just give you the layers without any expressions. We also have settings for pre-composing your layers beforehand. So off, instance and multiple. Off just leaves your layers as is. Let's turn it to instance and save and close. So select the layers and let's make a 9 repeats in a linear fashion. So you'll see it's pre-composed each of these into a React Precomps folder, and you'll see there's 3 precomps, one for each of the layers. Let's just undo that and go into multiple, save and close, and do the same thing again. And this time you'll see in the Precomps folder, each of the 9 repeats has its own precomp. Other features on the effector include animation type and easing. So if I just show you the easing first of all, let's put a linear fall off and position on the Y value. You can see there's some easing there. That's because by default ease in and out is selected. You can go to linear, or perhaps just ease in or ease out. There's also a custom easing setting. If we select custom and go into custom easing. Now this works in a similar way to the graph. So ease in is your 0, 0 point. So if I increase that, this is the tangent that we're affecting, so in X and Y. Like so, and then the out point here, if I decrease that, gives us a sharper fall off. We can also affect the animation type, so if we can invert it, or we can use in and out. So if I go to circle, it returns to the same position when it's inside the hold area of the effector. And that's React. It's a really useful tool for After Effects and it's a lot of fun to play with. We're looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Thanks.